Welcome back to Cooking with Chef. We hope you enjoyed our very first episode, which is learning how to make our carne asada street tacos. For this episode, we will be focused on a warm, hearty meal, which is our braised short ribs. Chef will take you through all the ins and outs and all the ingredients that you need to make this wonderful, hearty dish. And with that, I'd say let's go join Chef in the kitchen.
Welcome back, everybody, to our second episode of Cooking with Chef. On this one, we're going to be making one of my favorite winter dishes. It's going to be a red wine braised short rib. We're going to need a few ingredients to get started. We're going to have our mirepoix that we're going to add with our short ribs to help add some flavor to the sauce. So first thing we want to do is get our knife, make sure it's good and sharp. Now that our knife is ready to work, we're going to grab our carrot, celery, yellow onion. We're going to give that a real rough chop. This doesn't need to be pretty. It's just going to be going in to help flavor the sauce, like I said previously. So we'll just take it, break it down a little bit. Now that we've got all our vegetables cut up, we're going to start trimming our short ribs. We went ahead and made it really simple for you, packaged everything up nice and neat so you don't have to do any of the busy work at home and you can get straight to cooking your short ribs and having them all ready to go. First thing we want to do is get our short rib out. You're going to see it has a little bit of silver skin on the back here and a little larger chunks of fat over the top. We're going to want to clean all of that up so that it looks like one of these here that I've already done. So the first thing you do, you find a little spot, get your knife right underneath the fat cap and just clean it right off all the way to the end. Again, this is something that we've went ahead and taken care of in the box for you, but just for your future reference, when you have some friends or family over and you want to be able to do this on your own, you know exactly what you need to do. Now that our meat's ready to start being seared off, we're going to head into the kitchen, dust these in a little bit of all-purpose flour and some salt and pepper, get our pan good and hot, and start searing them. See you in the kitchen. Alright, now that we have all of our short ribs cut and ready to go, we're going to go ahead and season them with some salt and pepper. Then we're going to dredge them in a little bit of flour. Sear them off in our heavy bottom pan. You definitely aren't going to need one this big, but for the amount that I'm doing today, it's going to require a little more than what you're going to be doing at home. So let's go ahead and get started with that process. We want to put a real heavy seasoning of salt on this because we're going to put the flour on afterwards, and that's going to take away from some of the salty flavor. So now that we got our short ribs salted, we're going to go ahead and toss them in a little bit of this flour, coat them really nicely, shake off any excess off of there. Go ahead, drop them right into the oil in our pan on a medium-high heat. You're going to want to let them sear until you get a nice brown on the bottom. It takes a little bit of time. But as the fat renders out from the meat, it'll brown up and get nice and crisp. Alright. Once we get a nice golden to dark golden on the meat there, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. We're going to continue this till we get a nice sear like that on all the sides of the short ribs. Be sure on some of these thicker pieces like this that you don't just leave it just to the broad sides. You want to get those short sides as well. Make sure that the whole thing gets seared, get all those flavors and juices stay in there during the whole braising process. Alright, now that our short ribs have been seared off, we're going to take our mirepoix, get it in the pan with a little bit of cooking oil, and caramelize it a little bit. Now we got some nice caramelization on our vegetables here. Everything's looking good. We're gonna dump in our red wine. We're gonna allow that to reduce by about 50%. All right, now that our wine's reduced by about 50%, we're gonna add our broths. We got some chicken broth here. And a little beef broth. All right, we're gonna stir these up, make sure they're combined. We're gonna bring it back up to a boil, and then we're gonna pour that over our short ribs. Then we'll be ready to get them in the oven, start the braising process. All right, now our liquid's boiling. We're ready to go ahead, pour it over our short ribs here. So be careful, you don't want anything splashing up on you. Trust me, it's not fun. But here we go. All right, so now we're gonna put this in the oven. At 350 for about 3 to 4 hours, depending on your oven temperature and whether or not it's convection or not. But we'll find out shortly how long it takes. All right, now that our short ribs are in the oven, we're gonna work on one of the side dishes that's gonna go along with this. It's gonna be a creamy Parmesan polenta cake, or just regular Parmesan polenta if you like. It's a little easier to do in advance. If you make the cake, you can do it the day in advance, let it chill down. And then when you're finishing your sauce, you can sear that off and put it in the oven. Either way, we're gonna start with some milk, water, our polenta, and a little Parmesan cheese. Pretty basic. You just start, get a medium saucepan over a nice high heat, put your water and your milk in, you're gonna bring that up to a boil. Now that our cream and water mixture is up to a boil, simply going to stir in our polenta. You don't want to pour it in too fast or you're going to end up with clumps. Once it's in there, we're going to go ahead and reduce the heat to medium high. Now that our polenta is stirred in and ready to go, we're going to take an immersion blender. Hopefully you have a normal sized one at home. Ours is in the shop currently. And we're gonna put it in and we're gonna blend it together. What this is gonna do is help make sure any small clumps that were in there are good, and it's also gonna create a really nice, smooth, creamier texture within the polenta itself. Once you're done burr mixing your polenta with the immersion blender, you're going to want to make sure you lower the heat down to a little bit below medium. Keep it on a low heat for probably 15 to 20 minutes. Let it thicken up while stirring every 2 to 3 minutes. Otherwise, it'll start to stick to the bottom of the pan. All right, after about 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to find your polenta starting to look really thick, like some really thick grits or oatmeal. That's when we're going to be about ready to add in our Parmesan and a little bit of butter. Or a lot of butter, either way. Once your butter is completely melted and the cheese is all fully incorporated into your polenta, this is where you're going to stop, and you're going to want to season it with a little bit of your salt and pepper. Give it a taste. Be very careful. It's like lava in the mouth. And once you have your seasoning correct, you're either going to be ready to put it on a back burner on a really low flame, cover it, reserve it for service of your short ribs, or if you're like me and you like to do the least amount of work the day before or the day of, go ahead and pour it onto a lined baking sheet or any sort of a glass dish you might have, and you let that chill down and cut little polenta cakes the next day. Running into a problem where your pan is too big and your polenta is very thin, just pull your piece of parchment back, fold it over the top, pat it down, It'll hold it nice and even for you so you have a nice thick creamy polenta cake. So if you're like me and you like to spend more time with your guests that are over for dinner instead of working and cooking, you probably chose to make your polenta the day ahead. So once you got your polenta, it's all chilled. I took a little ring mold, cut it into shapes. You can cut it into squares, triangles, really doesn't matter, it's just more for aesthetic. Now we're going to take our polenta, sear it off, get it in the oven. I got medium-high heat with a heavy bottom pan. I always use cast iron at home. This is a carbon steel pan, same difference. It doesn't lose temperature very quickly once you add stuff to it, so it helps prevent anything from sticking. So all we're going to do, get the oil in the bottom nice and hot, drop in our polenta cakes. Once you got a nice little golden brown, you're just going to want to flip them over and be careful not to catch any splatters of this oil. That's not fun. Alright, once you got your nice golden brown on your polenta, go ahead and pop it in the oven for 5 minutes and then just keep it warm and wait for us to finish everything else up and it'll be ready for service. That was our timer for 3 hours. At this point, we're going to take off the foil, get a fork. We'll get in here, and if the meat starts to pull apart very easily like this, we know we're good to go and pull these out, get our sauce on the stove, and finish this up. Now that we have our short ribs out of the oven and our polenta warming up, we're reducing down a little bit of wine. We're going to remove our short ribs from the braising liquids, strain the braising liquid into here for our finishing sauce. Alright, now our sauce is reduced down by about 25% or so. We're going to hit it with just a really small mixture of cornstarch and water, just equal parts cornstarch and water. Add it really slowly to make sure that it doesn't thicken beyond what you're going to be wanting. Alright, now that we have our sauce ready, we got the right consistency just so it coats the back of a spoon real nicely, just like that. We're ready to get our short ribs and our polenta on the plate. Now we have everything ready. Get our plate out. Put our polenta right there in the middle. Short rib right on top. And our sauce right on top of that. Now we're ready to eat.
Thank you for joining us for this month's episode of Cooking with Chef. I hope you enjoy learning how to make braised short ribs, which is one of my favorite all-time winter dishes. You'll be able to pick up all the ingredients to make these at home. Just follow the instructional video provided here. We'll also put in written instructions in your box that you can get from the club. We will send out weekly emails to give you all the details you need on how you pick it up, where to pick it up, costs associated with it, and so forth. Next month, we're going to be teaching you how to make corned beef and cabbage. Great way to get your St. Patrick's Day festivities kicked off the right way. But until then, enjoy your braised short ribs.